Hello everybody and welcome back to another Game Design 1 2D tutorial. A very common question I get from a lot of students is how do I keep track of how many enemies I've killed in my scene? For a couple of reasons I usually want to do that. One, they just want to be able to know how many are left in the scene so that they know how many more they have to fight. They may also make it to where once they've killed all of the enemies, they go to the next level or the next scene. So you have to kill the enemies before you go to the next scene. So one of the ways that I've chosen to implement this, I'm sure there are other ways, is to keep track of the enemies using an enemy dead script. So if you look at some of my previous tutorials, I walked through how to make your character move and how to draw labels. This one's focusing exclusively on keeping track of the number of enemies left. So I'll show you the GUI side of it first, the game side, and then we'll get into the code. So in this case here, I have my little Mario character and all of his coins. He's able to shoot, and then his enemy is actually going to be the turtle. Notice that when I shoot and I don't hit a turtle, the enemy's left value up here stays equal to 1, but when I turn around and actually shoot my turtle, my enemy's label says there are no enemies left in the scene. And at this point you can decide what that means in your game. Do you get an extra life? Do you go to the next level? Is the game over? So that's what this tutorial is going to show you. So what I've done is for my main character, in this case Mario, I made a script called Enemy Dead. And let's take a look at Enemy Dead. Again, just to review, to make a script, it's just right click, create C# script, and then I again call mine Enemy Dead. So if I go over and I look at this script, it's a very simple script in order to be able to do that. Zoom in just a little bit here. I start off with a variable called enemies left. Okay, and I made it a public variable so that if I wanted to go in Unity and change that while I'm customizing, I could do that. In my start script, I also ensure that the variable starts off with the same value. In my update function, this is what's happening every single frame within your game, I make an array. Okay, and if you're not familiar with arrays, an array is essentially a complex variable that can store multiple pieces of data of the same type, as opposed to one that only a variable can hold. So I made an array of type game objects, which means it's going to hold onto all game objects that have the tag name enemy. Now I'm not referencing the name in the hierarchy here, I'm actually referencing a tag. And the reason a tag is valuable is because it allows me to give multiple objects of different names, essentially the same overall group name. So I may have a mushroom that's an enemy, I may have a turtle that's an enemy, I may have, one of the flowers that jumps out of the sewer pipe become an enemy. And so rather than making them all have the same name in the hierarchy, I can give them what's known as a tag name. So in Unity, the way we do this is we select our object, and up here in the upper right, there's an area that says tag. Now I already have it set to tag enemy, but let me show you how to make a new tag. So if I go click on this and say add tag, I have the option here to create a brand new tag. So go ahead and call yours enemy for now. And once you've created the tag, go back and click on your enemy and make sure that it does have enemy assigned to it. And so you can now use that tag for any other objects within this scene. So if you had a mushroom, I could click on the mushroom and just like the turtle, drop down and now choose my new tag named enemy. So that's how we can tag objects to have essentially the same group name. So not only would he be able to kill a turtle, but he'd also be able to kill a mushroom, the same logic. So I'll jump back over to C#. So that's what this is saying, is go in the game, find all the game objects that have the tag enemy, store them in the array. Okay? Then what I'm going to say here is that a variable called enemies left is now equal to enemies.length. So I'm just essentially overriding the starting value here with now however many objects we find. So at bare minimum, it'll have 1. If it finds more prefabbed enemies, it's going to find out how many are in the array. That's what .length says, how many items are in the array, and store that new value to my enemies left variable. Okay, the last thing I've got in this class is just an onGUI function, and onGUI is what draws the label on the screen, and I talk about this in other tutorial videos, but essentially make a new text style. How do you want your text to look? And this is where you set it up. I can say I want the color of the text to be white. I want the font size to be set to 30 points. And then I get into drawing a GUI label. For help in drawing a GUI label, you may want to look at my collisions tutorial. I actually go through and explain what new rect means and how it draws. But essentially, this is X and Y location for the upper left corner of where this word will show up, this rectangle. How wide do you want the rectangle? How tall do you want the rectangle to be? And then squeeze the words enemy left and the value of the enemy's left variable. All that will get squeezed into an invisible rectangle on the screen. Just a reminder, the coordinate system 0, 0 is the upper left corner. So 1100 by 10 would be 1100 pixels from the left and down pixels from the top. And that's where it's going to draw enemies left. So if I go and I look real carefully and I play my game, you will see 0 goes over 1100, down just barely 10 pixels, and draws enemy left. Okay, so then the other issue is, now that I have the label up there, how do I actually keep track of how many I've killed? Well, in my game example, I have a another class that Mario shoots with called Weapon Script. And my Weapon Script class is the one that's responsible for shooting a weapon, and I will have another tutorial posted on just how do you shoot. That's not what this tutorial is about. But essentially, this weapon script handles shooting the projectile, how long does it have to wait between shoots, and whether or not it's possible to shoot. But the key here, in order to get the enemy's left variable to update, is I have to make an object-oriented connection to my enemy dead class that we just previously talked about. So in object-oriented programming languages, which are all of the C-based languages, in order to connect to another class, I have to create an object die from the class I want public values from. So I say enemy dead, that's the class I want access to. Die will be the object that will have access to all of its public variables and methods. And then it says go and get those values from that class. Most important line right here is that I'm saying that if I'm able to shoot an enemy, I want to use the die object from enemy dead and decrease the enemy's left variable by 1, so that now it says there's one less item in the array essentially. It's not removing anything from the array, but it's going to remove the length or decrease the length of the array by 1 so that the counter changes. Okay, and again, you can pause and look at that if you need to. Now if I go and I play my game, okay, if I shoot to the left, nothing is happening because my script says that it can only decrease the array length if it's the weapon script detects that it is shooting at an enemy. And if I shoot the enemy's left variable has decreased. If you have any questions, please let me know. Email is young.mark@wgcloud.org. Students know to come by and ask questions if they need to. Rewatch the video as often as you would like. I hope this video helped you to understand how to better keep track of enemies in your game and how to decrease a label so that you have a better idea of how many are actually in the game. Alright, thanks for watching everybody and take care.